There's Rumble now has just fired off. And, of course, on Podbean, where you can check me out. I'll share links as I go along. A lot to talk about today. First, a little bit of sad news. The Republican Party lost a House seat that was formerly owned by represented by George Santos in New York, thanks to the abysmal failures of the RNC and the leadership, particularly that of one Ronna McDaniel, who wasted lots of money on limos and rides instead of get out the vote, as well as apparently the leadership within the New York GOP. That race ended up being squandered and is now run by Democrats. Because of that, of course, Democrats have an extra vote in the U.S. House. So on issues that we need to fight, like impeaching Mayorkas, which did manage to pass, as well as the defeat of any efforts on the immigration bill, Democrats have one edge on us regarding that issue. So this is, and one vote can make the difference on things like defunding abortion issues. Of course, the big spending bill, the funding, whether or not we're going to actually secure the border or waste more money on Zelensky's corruptocracy. You know, that's the kind of stuff that one House race can end up making a difference on. And so we, the people, have to reform the Republican Party in terms of politically saving the nation. Hey, Kevin, and that's part of what I'm going to talk about today. On a national level, there is, of course, the infamous Ronna McDaniel has been forced to resign. So that's a bit of good news. I mentioned that last week, but it's still something to really be happy about. Her chief of staff and some other rhinos, I believe, have also resigned from that position. Sadly, however, there's still a lot of those rhinos that have kind of are still infesting the RNC, as well as on a lower level. What I want to play here is someone who has actually been thought of as possibly replacing Ronna McDaniel. It is, I think, a daughter of Donald Trump. There have been several people that have been listed. One is someone who ran against Ronna the last time, and I cannot remember her name. There's another there's an activist named Scott who's been promoted as somebody to run against run for Ronna's seat. Let me first just play this video. Well, it's Laura Trump, and she's been asked as someone to be a replacement for the failed Ronna McDaniel. Let me see if I can flip the camera around and just get a shot of that.
I talk about what needs to change at the committee to make this party more competitive, because I think after 2022 with those midterms, when that went the way it did, as hated as Joe Biden was, I think we all realized we have a huge problem in the party. What needs to change? And if you get the job, what can you do?
Yeah, well, listen, we need to be playing chess and not checkers. And that's exactly what we've been doing, unfortunately. And as you just pointed out, the Democrats have been playing a completely different game. We need to catch up and we need to outdo them at that game. We better have at the Republican National Committee a ground game operation, the likes of which this country has never seen. We better be doing voter registration in record numbers. We also better be doing legal ballot harvesting all across this country, because those are things the Democrats always outdo us on. And let's face it, Rob, we better start telling people to go vote early. We have this notion that it would be nice if we had one day of voting. I would love that. You would probably love that. We'd love to give people the day off of work, and we'd love to have paper ballots. We don't have it right now. So we need to bank enough votes going into Election Day that we aren't trying to play catch up that day. We know things happen. Look at what happened in Arizona. Here's what I can tell you. The RNC needs to be the leanest, most lethal political fighting machine we've ever seen in American history. That is the goal over the next 9.5 months. If I am elected to this position, I can assure you there will not be any more $70,000 or whatever exorbitant amount of money it was spent on flowers. Every single penny will go to the number one and the only job of the RNC. That is electing Donald J. Trump as president of the United States and saving this country. We have no time to waste. We've got to get to work. We've got a lot of money to raise, and we need to ensure that every penny goes to those things that I just mentioned. Otherwise, you're right, in perpetuity, the Democrats are going to beat us.
Yeah, we.
Okay, so again, that was Laura Trump, a possible replacement. She's a candidate, what we call a candidate for RNC chair. There were some others that have been mentioned before. I don't know. I don't know what her past credentials are. I know that some people have hinted, if you type in Ronna McDaniel, there is another person who I thought would be better just because for the sake of the fact that she actually ran against Ronna McDaniel before and almost got the vote, but fell by a few votes. And I'm trying to remember her name. But if you type in Ronna McDaniel, you'll see all kinds of comments about why she needed to go. And as I said before, she has done a lot of damage to the party, and we've seen what's happened because of that. A lot of we just lost a race in New York. Of course, we lost the midterms that Laura Trump briefly mentioned. And it's because money was wasted on things like limo rides and flowers when they should have been spent on get out the vote. A lot of consultants got rich. But of course, we need to do this on a local level. A lot of people think, okay, the RNC, how do you vote somebody out in the RNC? Well, you send delegates to the national convention. Hey, Brent. Hey, Rebecca. In order to send the people to the national convention or to send them to the national committee, the RNC, to vote on these type of things, on who gets what position, as well as who gets the platform, rules changes. Those things are decided, and they're often chosen by people from national committees. So they're often chosen on a local committee, your county committee, in your different clubs. They get together and they nominate people to go to the state conventions and the state committees, and then those people go to national committees. And what's happening, sadly, is the efforts, a lot of the fight regarding those local efforts are being hampered. The establishment types are sabotaging efforts to try and allow conservatives to get involved in that process. And it's, of course, making it more difficult for people to want to get involved. A lot of people have given up on the Republican Party, and it's kind of sad because we need new blood. Hey, Paula, I'm posting here a bunch of links that you can of this. So if I do have a slow connection on Facebook, so if it cuts out or you want to see more of what I'm talking about on Rumble, you can do so. One of the things I want to talk about is one example of what I'm talking about on the local level is the Saline County Young Republicans. This was actually talked about this morning on the Dave Elzick Show, 101.1 FM, The Answer. I talked about this before, but it does need to be repeated. One of the people that's the problem, like Ronna McDaniel and Jeff DeWitt, the former Arizona GOP chair who was on tape trying to bribe Kari Lake from running for U.S. Senate, is the Arkansas Young Republicans chair, Rusty Jackson. Rusty Jackson made, along with Drew Martin and a few others, collaborated to keep conservatives from being able to vote on officers in the greater Saline County Young Republicans. And now, hey, Janelle, they are actively trying to, they had another meeting where they just blocked anybody from attending. They supposedly made it public, which I think they have to do in order to be able to send people to go to things like the state convention in May, or the state committee meeting in May, and then the state convention, which is supposed to happen, I believe, in June or July. So they're making it public, but then when people show up that they don't like, they actually stick the police on them. Now, I didn't witness that. I'm told that's what happened in a January 30th meeting. There's other people, I think, who was it? He was on here before. Oh, what's his name? Bradshaw, I think is his name. He was on here before. He talked about it. Yeah, Paul, and you're right. And for what I'm told, this has also happened in the Arkansas women's group, I believe, of the Hot Springs County. One of those groups also had this similar tactic where what they do is they change the rules and suddenly say, oh, you're not eligible. You can't vote, or you can't participate. And so I'm going to play you some footage just from this event that happened. This was in October of 2023 when they had an election of officials. Hold on just one second.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation.
Notice here, this guy actually forgot the flag. I'm going to actually skip over that.
I would like
So I don't know if you caught what he said because of the background noise, but I don't know why that keeps popping up. He made up a rule to where in order to vote in this election, you have to pay your dues and be credentialed. That is a lie. That is not the Young Republicans. That is not in the Young Republicans Constitution. In the Young Republicans Constitution, you have to pay your dues and then be a registered voter in the Saline County area, which all these people were. So after this, and I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's 8 minutes long, but he blocks people from being able to vote in this election of officers.
Can you just pass them down chairs and try it? And I pressed it. And it said, they're bigger. No, we don't have to. It's online. And the bylaws of your state Arkansas Club, the Arkansas Club of Young Republicans, said that the memberships are to be paid on the website.
Well, we also have our chapter bylaw, which states that you have to be a member for 6 months prior to the general election. You can miss no more than 3 meetings.
May I have a copy of those?
Those were approved in March.
So what they did is during the Young Republicans Convention, they approved their own bylaws, which again violate the Young Republican bylaws. You do not have to wait that time. That is a lie. And again, they made this up so that people wouldn't be able to vote. And this is the kind of thing that they do all across the nation, really. is they make up these rules to keep people out that they don't like. And sadly, it's so far it's worked. They've managed to keep a lot of people out of the Republican Party on a national level. But there are some instances where the people have risen up and said, no, we're not going to take this. In Nebraska, they actually had a similar incident. A guy who actually was arrested for trespassing. Yeah, exactly, Paula. You have no idea. And these people had no idea either, because their so-called made-up rules, they never bothered to update it on the website. So you go on the website thinking, oh, this is the rule. I pay my dues. I'm already a registered voter. I become a member of the Young Republicans. And then you go there to this meeting. You take time off work or away from your loved ones to go to this meeting, and you find out, oh, no, we have a different bylaw that we're using. So that's fraud right off the bat. You're right, Paula. There is no way to know. And then on top of that, you're treated like you don't exist. There's this made-up credentials committee, and of course, this woman's asking, I'd asked earlier, what do I do to be credentialed? They never bothered to tell you.
So with that, we have again the election process. Is there any nominations for chair?
I nominate Mark.
Yes.
She would have found it.
Now, this is Jennifer Lancaster, who is a young Republican and been a member of the Republican Party for years, also is the Arkansas 2nd District Chair. She was elected in, I think, May of 2023. And I know this because I was there for her election. They actually sicked it was in Morrilton. They sicked the Morrilton police on me for this when they tried to kick me out so they could somehow sabotage that election. And when I refused to leave and stood my ground, after lots of being harassed by some state legislatures, Breonna Davis and others tried to get me to leave, they went ahead and held that election, and of course she won. So this is the 2nd District Chair, and she's, I believe here is where she reads the bylaws again of what it means to be a member.
It says that they paid their dues and that they are registered to vote in the county upon paying the dues. They are immediately a member, and when they pay their dues, they get a welcome for now a member of AFYR. So I believe if they are in fact registered in this county and they have paid their dues, they are a member. That is what your bylaws say.
So again, she just explained the bylaws, and this Rusty Jackson, the AYR chair, is going to make up some kind of excuse to claim otherwise.
Our chapter bylaws have those, and our chapter bylaws are looked at here too. Do they have been accepted? Yes, you get those automated emails once you have paid your dues. Yes. But this has been approved by the state as of last year.
So your bylaws.
No, it wasn't approved by the state. It was approved in the Arkansas Young Republican Convention. And even if it was, it violates the Arkansas Constitution bylaws. You can't do that. Just like you can't pass a law saying we're going to confiscate all firearms in a state or even county or city, because it violates the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. A constitution supersedes any bylaw. And by the way, Jennifer Lancaster is also a lawyer, but even if she wasn't, I mean, that's what it means.
Yes, these bylaws have been approved.
Okay.
You were talking about the state bylaws, so we can write our own bylaws as long as they are not
Contradictory to
approved by
the
the
state.
state. Since they have been approved by the state,
But that's contradictory to the bylaws.
the state has already approved it.
So again, what they did is they did this. They approved these they've made up bylaws, but they are in contradiction to the state bylaws. They're also most likely a contradiction to the Young Republicans law in a whole. And they know this.
approved last year. So we will begin our nominations. There was a nomination.
Can I follow up on that? I have the Arkansas Federation of Young Republicans Constitution and Bylaws right here.
Yes, ma'am. We go by the greater Saline. The state bylaws are for the state.
But they can't contradict.
Yeah. The state has already approved this last year. That is what we're going.
So Ford County bylaws cannot contradict the state bylaws.
This is what was approved last year, supported by the state.
So this is the
That's how
state,
we
right?
move it. Our state bylaws are clear.
Constitutional
The state has given us clear to make our own laws as long as they have supported.
By the way, this meeting room was poorly chosen, and I think it was done on purpose because we oftentimes, this is one of the tactics that rhinos will do. Let me just go back here because I think I'm about done with this. Is they will deliberately choose locations where it makes it harder for guests to attend. And in some cases, like the winter committee, they deliberately put it at the RNC headquarters and claimed they didn't have enough room so that I was not able to go inside and record what happened. I had to be out in the foyer and listen to it on the TV. They also did a similar thing at the Wyndham when the summer committee meeting, I believe the last state committee meeting, they had a thing where they deliberately picked a room where they supposedly didn't have room for guests. And the real reason to do that is so that they don't have any feedback from we the people. And so that's the kind of tactics that they do. And in this case, they often pick, I know when they did the Arkansas 2nd District meeting, they picked a theater that was poorly lit, badly, really crowded, really a bad area. I'm sorry. It was Mike Lindell had an event at a really nice place. Hey, Sharon, and hi to all those who run Rumble. And they were real sloppy about what they tried to do there. So in this instance, they picked an outdoor area where there's a lot of background noise. It's hard to see and hear. It was actually overcrowded. They had to get extra tables, as well as embarrassing, sloppy things, just like forgetting the flag. And they do this on purpose. They do this as a way to try to make it more difficult for we the people to get involved. Let me play some more of this. Again, you can also see this on Rumble. It's just a little bit nicer than watching it via my phone. Yeah, you're right, Paula. And
Okay, so I just need to understand if your AFRW, AFIR Constitution and bylaws say immediately upon those requirements being met, which I told you earlier, they are contradicting, I guess, your county bylaws.
The chapter bylaws have already been approved by the state.
Well, so has this.
Yes,
But
it
as
is.
well, they can't
There can
contradict.
be two, if we follow our chapter. That's the great thing. We have a motion on the table. I've heard a second. Is there any motion?
We're gonna have to
there was no second, by the way. Yeah, you're right.
build.
I've already talked with the party that you're back. You may
And your rules are contradicting them. I think you should at least clarify.
Can you clarify what your objection?
Okay, now here's someone else. I think this is the veteran. Hey, Caroline. Yeah, you're right. And there's no way to, like I said, they did this on purpose. They chose a very poor area. Now, I think this guy is if I'm not mistaken, a veteran who was also later on kicked out. And this guy gets really frustrated, and rightfully so. I'm going to play a little bit of this.
That if it were paid members that weren't, we cannot vote.
Can you clarify what we're objecting?
You cannot vote if you have base credentials.
I don't know what you're talking about, what you're talking about. So,
So basically, in summary,
I make a motion to suspend the rules.
No, ma'am, you're not a voting member. You cannot make motions.
may
I've
I
heard
explain what the difference is? So he's saying none of you all are members,
The
even though
following
you
people,
pay.
hang on a second,
You're not
everybody.
members.
Let's let her do.
No, 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 sir.
that's what
I'm the
he's saying.
chairman. I have the floor.
However,
So, the following
however, the
people
rules
have
say
paid.
that
Now here, there is a point of order, and it is relevant to the situation because they're trying to clarify who is and isn't a member. But of course, Rusty Jackson, being the rude and inconsiderate person he is just saying, well, I'm just going to overrule any discussion on what is and isn't a member, even though that's very important and relevant to what is they're talking about. So he's violating Robert's Rules of Order.
If they are registered electors, and if they have paid, and if they have paid dues, then immediately they shall be a member. And he's saying they're not, even though they've been
Amber Johnston,
To join the
Leslie
other
Trigger,
public.
George Simmons, April Fuller, Christopher Smith, Xana, Emily Curtis, Olivia
They won't let them
Karen
in,
Hanson,
even though they're paid.
Miles Caldwell.
So again, he's just basically bowling through, ignoring any conversation, and reading through names of people that are supposedly members that, based upon his made up bylaw. They go on and they have their own election, which was a sham. They then, because they didn't proper follow procedure, when they adjourn, the people that are left have their own election. Those are the legitimate officers because they followed the Arkansas Young Republican Constitution. You can see this footage on either YouTube account Keep Arkansas Legal or on the Rumble page or on Rumble Just the Right Angle. You can also visit Jimmy Cavan. He did a big post about this, and he's actually done some more investigating. There have been some legal fights regarding this issue. This situation that is ongoing, and it's not just because it just happened in October. And by the way, this organization, as I mentioned before, they are supposed to be able to send delegates to like the state conventions, the district convention, and the state committee meetings. I believe their chair is able to vote on some important issues, things like closed primaries, things like, are you going to be able to, do you have to be a Republican to actually vote in the Republican primary, or do you have to be a Republican to run for office as a Republican? Apparently you don't, according to thanks to stuff like this. So regarding your question, Caroline, is there any chance to get released rhinos? Yes, there is. And what we can do is put pressure on these people. Drew Martin, by the way, he works for French Hill. He's worked on several campaigns. And that's another thing. We need to find out how these people are getting the position, because oftentimes these campaign staff members and these consultants, they're basically just anti-conservative, anti-Trump rhinos who are oftentimes getting charge of the organizations. They get put in positions of leadership, and it needs to change in terms of how we pick these people, because they are ruining the Republican Party. Drew Martin is a Congressman French Hill's campaign manager, national committee man for the Arkansas Young Republicans. Again, a national committee man. That means he goes to the national conventions. And now he's, unofficially, the Greater Saline County Young Republicans chairman. And then Rusty Jackson is the Arkansas Young Republicans chairman. And as I said, Jimmy Cavan has a big post regarding this issue. Frank Curtis has talked a lot about this. And apparently Drew Martin's, I guess, wife, Gabrielle Harvey, or fiance, is the national committee man, the Arkansas Young Republicans national committee man. You can probably guess these people probably vote for Ronna McDaniel, and they'll probably vote for any other rhino to be in a position of power. And you can see there's been a lot of comments. It's a pretty big thread on what's going on. Tabitha Conley did also a recording of that event. So if you want to see it from her point of view, feel free to do so. A lot of people are involved in this. Also, the Saline County GOP has had its own fight regarding this issue and other issues. Matter of fact, their chair, David Gibson, resigned, I believe, about 2 weeks ago over this and other issues the Saline County GOP. So yes, Caroline, we are forcing these people out. As I mentioned before at the beginning, we've kicked out Ronna McDaniel. We've kicked out her chief of staff, whose name I can't remember. We voted out Melanie Golnick for Arkansas 2nd District. Pulaski County, we had similar drama. We had Marlise Kerr and Reed Martin, no relation to Drew Martin, who were basically using Pulaski County as a just get out the vote and free volunteers for rhinos organization. And of course, there hardly was anybody showed up, because why would you show up? You're just going to be, why would you pay dues and waste your time to be nothing but free labor for Impact Management or Caldwell Consulting? Why bother? Well, we had enough. We took over that organization. We voted those people out. And I think it's about time we do the same thing with old Rusty Jackson and Drew Martin. I think it's time we just go ahead and kick these clowns out. And there's ways to do it. You can contact your local chapter. You can contact various members in the Republican Party and say, Rusty Jackson, you need to resign. You can also share this broadcast. Go ahead and share this with other people. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now on this picture of old Rusty here. I'm going to copy this broadcast. There's actually multiple links I have here. Yeah, you're right. In order to get rid of these rhinos, we have to, cleanse. That's why I put the title here, Cleanse the Republican Party, because it's a step process. I'm hoping that we can eventually remove, what's his name, Steve Womack, and replace him with a good guy named Clint Penzo, who's running for his primary. But in order to do that, we need to do things like keep Democrats off our primary. We probably won't be able to do that. It's an uphill battle as it is, because an incumbent will have lots of money. But one of the other problems is a lot of these establishment types, they'll rig the election in some way or the other so that it makes it more difficult to remove these rhinos. So it's a kind of a step-by-step process. You kick out the rhinos in your county committee. You kick them out in the district level. You kick them out in the state committee. You pass rules to keep Democrats off the ballot in the primaries. You do like they did in Nebraska, where you force a lot of these rhinos to leave office. And after you do that, you start to be able to primary and get rid of kick out these federal officials. But that's the way to do it, is to get involved in your county committee and find a way to fight and kick these people out. Again, Ronna McDaniel is gone. Good riddance. It should have been done years ago, but better late than never. And like I said, it's a good start. That's how we started. That's how we force reform. This is piece by piece. Just like George Washington had to do in the American Revolution. A lot of people forget in the American Revolution, everybody thinks of traitors like Benedict Arnold, but there were a whole host of bad generals that Washington had to kick out. They were either traitors, or they were in some way, shape, or form either incompetent, traitors, or both. And George Washington had to clean house. He had to do that multiple times. In the Civil War, we had Abraham Lincoln had to fire multiple generals because they'd pick one guy and he'd be incompetent. They'd pick another guy and he'd be incompetent as well. And he had to do it several times, and long before he got to Ulysses S. Grant. And some of the worst generals in history, McClellan and Burnside, are two generals I can think of who were just absolute. If they weren't absolute traitors to the cause of the war to end slavery, then they were certainly incompetent. Either way, it doesn't matter. But yes, so, impeaching Mayorkas was great. It's a good signal, but it's going to die in the Senate. Why is it going to die in the Senate? Because Republicans allowed Democrats to steal 2 Senate seats in Georgia. And probably a lot of other elections that we probably could have won, but didn't. And we weren't able to primary John Bozeman because the RNC establishment allowed Democrats to vote in our primary, and they kept him in office. We could have replaced him with Jan Morgan. And going back a few years earlier, Jan Morgan ran against Asa Hutchinson, the anti-Trump, pro-vaccine, pretends to care about abortion, but really doesn't. Sold us out the China rhino, who fortunately did absolutely abysmal in Iowa. We tried the primary him. We couldn't kick him out. Why? In large part because our local Republican Party allowed Democrats to get in our primary elections. They also didn't do anything regarding debates. They also rigged it regarding speaking events. Jan Morgan, I believe, was banned from several speaking events. And they did everything behind closed doors to make sure the rhino stayed in power. But again, we're reforming. We're winning. We got them on the run. Kicking out Ronna McDaniel, that was a great thing. Let me do share screen here because I was supposed to. But folks, the political battle is an ongoing one. As I always try to mention before, there is a spiritual battle going on. And of course, as you know, today is Valentine's Day. One of the people that was by my side during a lot of these fights is the lovely Rebecca DeWitt. And so I actually have got some things for her for Valentine's. This is named after St. Valentine's. The Feast of St. Valentine's is celebrated February 14th. He was an actual person. There's kind of a description. I'll read the whole thing. He held marriage ceremonies in secret because the Romans wouldn't allow people to be married. Polygamy was very common. First, St. Valentine encouraged people to marry in the church despite of any edict. But eventually he was caught. He was in prison. He was tortured, beaten, I think, and then eventually he was beheaded. He did according to this story, he did a miracle where he was restored a girl's sight, and there's a quote that's attested to him. It says, "Let your religion be less of a theory and more of a love affair." Now, of course, when some people say religion, you think of ceremony, but this guy, I mean, he was according to historical accounts, he was a martyr. And this also is a quote by G.K. Chesterton often mentions. And it says here, February is the month of the Passion of the Lord. And this is a Catholic, and of course, he's a Catholic saint. I do have my problems with the Catholic Church and some of the things they do in regards to giving authority to priests and how much they, whether they honor or worship Mary and a bunch of other problems with their structure. But as far as I can tell, this guy was a saint and he died as a martyr. So celebrate St. Valentine's Day as you will. If you have loved ones, then we have somebody that at least we care about. I intend to celebrate a Valentine's Day with the lovely Rebecca. But remember this, and they say this is a month of the Passion of the Lord. It's not Black History Month because there's no such thing as Black history. We all have our own history. I have a grandma that you could look at and you would think it was black. I have other ones that's white. The history is the history of we the people. But that's about it. I have some other things to do, so I will end this broadcast. Y'all find me at Just the Right Angle on Rumble. You can replay this Facebook broadcast also on Podbean. You all have an excellent day.